I like to speak a language where AI is in the middle of the traditional finance world and Bitcoin. And I wanted to bridge those two groups together and say, you have to understand that the fuel for moving money from this side to this side is going to take AI. AI will disrupt all investments on this side, which make them less investable, and gradually people will move into Bitcoin.
Visser begins with Bitcoin. He acknowledges that in the short term, certain price targets are statistically unlikely. Using his background in options and volatility modeling, he notes that Bitcoin doubling within a year, from around 95 to 200, was less than a 2% probability, given where implied volatility sat earlier this year. But here's the key. He doesn't doubt that Bitcoin will ultimately reach valuations comparable to the Magnificent Seven tech giants. Those companies grew from a combined $1 trillion in market cap in 2007 to $15 trillion today. That journey took about 15 years. Visser believes Bitcoin could follow a similar trajectory, but in a fraction of the time.
I still believe we are going to shock people in the short time. Since for us to double from 100 to or 95 to 200 by the end of the year is very unlikely, at least where it is now and where the implied vol is. So probabilistically, it's not there. I've been through this cycle before of innovation. And what I mean by that for everyone listening, so Bitcoin moves faster and technology today moves much faster than it did in the past. What the Mag 7 accomplished from 2007 to today in 15 years, people have to go look.
Breathtaking.
Yeah, I mean, you went from 1 trillion to 15 trillion when you combine all that. This is going to take a lot less time. So Bitcoin's going to get to 15 trillion. It's going to happen. And I believe it's going to happen in much less time. The reason is because of artificial intelligence. So I started doing this because I like to speak a language where AI is in the middle of the traditional finance world and Bitcoin. And I wanted to bridge those two groups together and say, you have to understand that the fuel for moving money from this side to this side is going to take AI. AI will disrupt all investments on this side, which make them less investable, and gradually people will move into Bitcoin. If you understand poker and you're at a poker table, there's all, I forget the famous line that Doyle Brunson said, but he basically said, if you don't know who the sucker is at the table, you're the sucker. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you're not using AI in your business, if you have a lot of people and you're not using AI, which is the way most incumbents are, they're gradually looking to the CTO. The CTOs at every company I've ever seen think they can do anything better than any existing technology. The incumbents are going to get screwed. So they're sitting at the table and they're good poker players today, but they're not using AI the same way that the smaller kids are doing. And when they get at the table, and once everyone at the table has AI and you don't, you are the sucker at the table. That will happen slowly because the adoption takes time. AI agents are coming. They're coming quickly. And as they come quickly, more and more decisions will be made by computers and less by humans. That's what Bitcoin needs. Because Bitcoin this year, we're talking about it like it's not doing well. It's outperformed the S&P. The only thing it hasn't outperformed this year is gold. That's it. And then some of the foreign markets, but it's outperformed them by a lot. So I think as people kind of get used to this, at some point, just like the Mag 7, this will go parabolic. And I think everything today is happening in about 1/10 the time. So if it took 15 years to go from 1 trillion to 15 trillion with the Mag 7. I'm not saying it's going to happen in 1/10 the time, meaning 1.5 years, but I do believe that people are going to be shocked in this move higher. And the time where this happens is when vol collapses in my history. So Bitcoin saying it's going to double in a year was a very low probability event with the vol at 40. I'm a Black Scholes guy. It's where I spent my life. The probability of what I was saying was less than 2% at the beginning of the year. I still think this stuff is going to happen. We're getting close to 3 years since ChatGPT was launched. So like when you talk about OpenAI and their valuation and the fact that Elon Musk launched XAI post ChatGPT launch, and that company is already worth 200 billion. Anthropic's now 170 billion. The biggest risk you have is running into headwinds. If you run into any headwinds and someone leapfrog and you keep going, I mean, we didn't even mention Perplexity. These were not even companies. You've never seen anything like this. If you go through the S&P 500 and you look at how many companies in the S&P 500 have a market cap of 100 billion, you're not dealing with that many. So you've had this rapid rise. The Tesla thing is one of the most interesting things because I've written a lot of papers. I've taken a lot of stances on things. I love Tesla cars. I've only driven them for the last 13 years. I haven't owned another car. In Maine, I had to drive a gas car for a couple weeks. It was a nightmare for me. I can't do it. And again, this is not like some pro whatever electric car. They're just safer. They're more efficient. They're better. They're faster. They're quicker. It's just a better experience. So I'm not an owner of the stock, although I think I have to be now, because I really do believe that what Elon Musk is doing, and for the amount of hatred that came my way when I wrote the piece, I had never seen as many people respond to a paper that I wrote, and it was all negative. There was not one supporter of Tesla. People either hate
from the institutional crowd.
From the institutional crowd. They either hate Elon Musk or they just hate Tesla in general because they think it's a scam.
They think it's a scam and they think it's overvalued? Or like when you say scam, can you unpack what you think that their view is?
Overvalued, that Elon Musk has got away with stuff that other CEOs wouldn't get away with, regardless of whether it's the pay package, whether it's the fact that the company almost went out of business, that he promises and under delivers. It doesn't really matter.
They all have kind of an issue that they choose.
They have something that they choose to go through. And we're talking about, the guy is unbelievable with what he's been able to do. And if you go back and read his vision for what he wanted to use Tesla for in 2006, it's unbelievable what he was talking about, which the end game is, I want to have human beings on Mars. So to start with an electric company to do this to everyone, it's unbelievable. So
he just got lucky, Jordi.
He just got lucky.
He's only started a multi-billion-dollar company every 5 years for 35 years, but it's just luck.
It's pure luck. He gets into politics and he gets attacked on that.
He does have a habit of getting himself in controversial situations.
No question. But again, I think Steve Jobs did too in many, many ways. And these geniuses are there. So to finish the point, so people realize, the Waymo versus Tesla thing is one of the most important things in stage 2 for me. Stage 1 of the LLMs was basically getting people to use it in the text form. That's it. It's a replacement of a human being. So now with the most recent ChatGPT 5, we get IQ up to 148. It's just replacing a human brain. But what it can't do is it can't take in the physical world. So what he's trying to do is to say, I only want eyes on the car. And all of the cars that I have out on the road are mobile data centers, meaning they're collecting data, they're sending it back to me, I'm putting it through my Dojo supercomputer, and I'm going through and figuring out how to make this model better and better, only using vision as opposed to sensors and cameras. Well, they all have cameras, but LiDAR, and that's the way Waymo's gone. The problem is people doubt that he's going to win this game. And the thing is, we can't have humanoids that are fully generalist, meaning they're learning everything on their own. You can train a robot to replace what you're doing and do it. Maybe not you, but many other jobs. You can just put them in there and go, okay, you're going to be a perfect person at cooking. I'm going to make you a chef. So to make these guys specialists, okay, that's one thing. But if you're going to make them a generalist where they can do anything, which is really going to be important, especially for war and everything along that, you have to be using eyes. And that's what Elon Musk is embarking on doing. So I suggest to everyone, he might get paid $1 trillion based on the news on his possible pay package. But to get that, he has to turn the company into something massive and hit hurdle rates, just like a sports player. And I hate to say it, but I come from the hedge fund industry. A lot of hedge funds, especially the bigger ones, are taking more than 50% of the profit.
One is power demand. The rise of AI, data centers, and electrification is creating unprecedented strain on energy infrastructure. From transformers to turbines, backlogs are soaring. Visser believes we may even see a national emergency declared around electricity demand in the coming years. Another is housing affordability. He suggests housing could become a political flashpoint, even leading to government interventions framed as national emergencies. The current freeze in housing markets, with limited transactions and high prices, is unsustainable. Policymakers may eventually step in to stimulate building and address affordability challenges, particularly for younger generations.
He deserves, again, if you go through how much of businesses are owned by, investment advisors, his company is the least of the Mag 7 because he's the biggest owner. He has skin in the game already. So he has following from retail. What can I say? People love his dream. They love his vision. They love Star Trek, all of the things that I listen to. It's funny how you can hear one community that you grew up in all hate Elon Musk. And then you go listen to the podcast that I reference in my videos and we talk about here, Moonshots and BG2. They think he's the smartest guy they've ever met. Every vision he's had has come through. How amazing it is that he's built multiple companies, that he created Starlink. It's a major part of the war. I don't think people give him even like 1% of the credit the man deserves as being able to change our lives in such a meaningful way. I have Starlink up in Maine. I don't know how people don't understand. You can literally go anywhere with a mini set up and you have a computer. You have Wi-Fi where you need it. I just don't understand how people don't give him the credit that he deserves. The people that reached out to me, for the most part, are either my age or older. Okay. I would say a consistent theme with those people is the phrase, "This will end badly." Whether it's the same people don't like Bitcoin, they don't invest in Bitcoin. Elon Musk and Bitcoin are basically the same thing. In my opinion, like it's working, but because they had a stance a long time ago, they won't change. And I've said this to many, many people, and they laugh usually because they know it's true. You will never admit that you own Bitcoin, but you will own it. You'll never admit it. And they might drive a Tesla. They might sit there and they might buy the stock, but they will always in the back of their mind believe that this went badly, because that is the same viewpoint that people have had since the great financial crisis when they bailed everything out. Because there were people back then that were literally like, this is going to be the greatest thing. I've been calling for this. I mean, Stan Druckenmiller has been calling for bonds to collapse for a long time. The guy's the most successful hedge fund manager, hasn't had a down year, but that one call hasn't collapsed yet. And yet I'm sure if he was here, he'd say it's still going to happen. Not because he's stubborn, because he believes, based on everything that he's learned academically, and he's one of the smartest people I've sat in front of, from a balance between understanding markets, but also being just unstubborn and getting out of things. But he still believes it's going to happen, that this went badly, because you can't do this. And I happen to agree. I just think from my time at Singularity University that bad things are happening. They're just not happening in the bond market. They're happening in distribution of wealth. They're happening in other places, even though I believe in abundance down the road, which is the other part. But to get to abundance, you actually have to have Elon Musk in the world. You need Elon Musk to get us to abundance. And the irony is, he's the one saying the end game is good for everyone. He's the one not wanting to make the money. The reason he wants the $1 trillion is to get everyone on Mars. That's the thing people don't get. The bill doesn't go up, or it's paid for by the hyperscalers. Someone. It won't be the states, because they don't have the money necessarily to do it. But I don't want to scare people. But that is a representation of something that people have to pay attention to, because the demand side of power, as I've talked about repeatedly on this, power, we are entering a stage of power needs that is unprecedented. We are seeing it in the earnings of companies at all levels: batteries, storage, boilers, gas turbines, transformers. It doesn't matter what it is. The back orders are just going up dramatically. It's obviously driving GDP. It's keeping us from going into a recession at this point, but it is not going to stop. Now, the one thing I do want to say, and I'll do this on my video this week, because everyone says, well, there has to be an end game. Here's the end game. I wrote a paper this week about efficiency. I'm sick of hearing about efficiency. There will be efficiency. But for all of you people, as I wrote in the article, we went from 2G to LTE. We needed more bandwidth. It didn't stop the software that kept growing. We needed the bandwidth to support the increase in software. We have so many things happening that are going to continue to drive more demand that we don't have the power for. But eventually, sometime 2030, 2029, these recursive learning situations will get there, which means the actual algorithm, the AI, will figure out how to better be more efficient. The AI is the one that has to solve this, not humans. And so it's going to take some time. We're going to need AI agents. We need to go through this whole process. There's a lot of demand side that's coming, but I think people should just the news headlines are going to come, because they like to put out all the big doom and gloom things. And this thing is already out there. Electricity prices are going to be higher. I just think there'll be a national emergency declared at some point. I think this is an important point. Before I kind of go through the housing thing, what you just brought up, and you left one national emergency out that's been more recent, which is the fight on crime in the cities. These are things that voters actually agree with. And these national emergencies, in my opinion, actually are national emergencies. You can disagree. And like you said, this is the playbook. So for investors, for the next whatever amount of years, this is what's going to happen. They've done this consistently. Housing affordability is a major midterm thing. It's been brought up. I've highlighted on my videos. I always believed, based on how vocal Bill Pulte was being, at the same time as how many times they've referenced the housing affordability. But when Scott Bessent comes on whatever Labor Day, and I see this X post going, oh yeah, we might declare a national emergency very soon. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that their goal is to bring house prices down. And the only way to do that is, like you said, they've got to figure out some way to deal on the building side, and they have to increase transactions. So the market's frozen. And when the market is frozen, they need to find a way to unleash all this stuff. And so rather than sit there and fight it, rather than sit there and say this isn't good, anyone who has a child in the age, like I do, of say 22 to 35, they need to find housing. It's just expensive in every city across the country. If you're paying lots of money for an apartment to rent in New York or in LA or in Chicago or DC, and at the same time, there's a lot of crime. So your kids are in a place where they can get the jobs, but they're also exposed to the crime. One of the places that people have to look for as well now, and this is starting to become something that, whether you like it or not, again, if they could declare a national emergency on the Fed, as opposed to the manner they're going in, but that's what they're doing. They view the Fed as a national emergency. They just can't publicly come out and say it because there's this thing of Fed independence. So they go, yeah, they're doing all that.
The world is accelerating. Innovation cycles that once took decades now unfold in years. AI is not just a new technology. It's a force multiplier that will reshape every sector, from finance to housing to energy. Bitcoin, far from being a speculative sideshow, is positioned to become a multi-trillion-dollar asset, bridging the gap between traditional markets and the digital future. Elon Musk, despite his controversies, remains one of the few visionaries capable of driving humanity toward abundance, and even Mars.